raised my nephew for 8 years until mom won him back in court. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The judge hit the gavel, and my 8-year-old son screamed my name like he was dying. That sound, a raw, guttural tear through the sterile silence of courtroom 3B, will haunt me until the day I actually die. It wasn't just a scream, it was the sound of a universe collapsing. My arms instinctively reached out, a reflex honed over 8 years of soothing night terrors and scraped knees, but a hand, cold and firm, clamped onto my shoulder. A bailiff. On the other side of the aisle, my sister, Chloe, stood tall in a pristine beige power suit that probably cost more than my car. She didn't look at Leo. She looked at the judge, flashing a practiced, fragile smile, the tear she had squeezed out minutes earlier already drying on her perfectly contoured cheek. Grant, her new husband, the wealthy developer who had funded this legal assassination, patted her back awkwardly, like he was comforting a business partner after a successful takeover. The court finds that returning the child to his biological mother is in his best interests, the judge had muttered, barely looking up from his paperwork. He didn't see Leo as a boy. He saw a biological imperative, a checkbox marked mother. He didn't see me, Maya, the woman who had wiped every tear, celebrated every milestone, and loved this child with a fierce, all-consuming devotion that biology could never emulate. In 5 minutes, the law had erased 8 years. I was just the maternal aunt. Chloe, who had vanished before Leo was 6 months old, was the mother. As Leo was practically dragged toward the side door, he locked eyes with me, his face a wet mask of absolute betrayal. He thought I was letting this happen. What do you do when the law says you're nothing to your own child? I drove home to an empty house, knowing my 8-year journey as a mother had just been declared illegal. The silence was a physical weight. Every corner of my small house held a ghost. The toy box was half open, Lego sets scattered like casualties on the rug. The drawing of us, titled Me and Mommy Maya, was still taped to the fridge. Looking at it, I flashed back to the day it all started, 8 years ago. Chloe was on one of her downward spirals, leaving in a storm of shouting and broken plates. She slammed Leo, a 6-month-old with a harsh cough and eyes wide with confusion, into his car seat and handed him to me. Just for the weekend, Maya, she'd sneered, her eyes glazed, smelling of gin and something chemical. I need space. You're always judging me, so you deal with him. I took him. I loved him. I assumed it would be 2 days, maybe 3. But Monday came, and her phone was off. A week passed. I called her friends, her exes, no one knew. It became a month, then 6. I had to choose, drop him in the system or reorient my entire life. I was 24, just starting a career I loved, starting to date seriously. I dropped everything. I became a ghost to my friends, replaced date nights with pediatrician visits. I applied for kinship care, then formal guardianship. The social worker had shaken her head, saying, "You know she could come back anytime, right?" But Leo was my life. His first word was "Mama," looking directly at me. Every night, for 8 years, I read him Goodnight Moon, tucked his feet in, and promised him he was safe. I sacrificed my 20s and built a life around him. We were happy. We were a family. For 8 years, I truly believed I had saved him, but I was wrong. I was naive enough to believe that being a parent was defined by showing up. The knock came 3 months before the verdict, during Leo's 8th birthday party. The house was loud with kids, sugar, and laughter. We were about to light the candles on his Star Wars cake. When I opened the door, for a full 10 seconds, I didn't recognize the woman standing there. She was radiant, her hair sleek and styled, wearing a massive diamond wedding ring and an outfit from a magazine. Then she spoke. "Happy birthday, my little Leo." Chloe pushed past me, sweeping into the room like she had just popped out for milk. The laughter died instantly. The other parents stared. Leo stopped jumping on the sofa and looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Chloe let out a practiced, trilling laugh. "I'm your real mommy, baby." She reached out to grab him, but Leo flinched and ducked behind me, gripping my legs so hard my circulation cut off. My heart was pounding against my ribs. "Chloe, you can't just walk in here," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady for the kids. She ignored me, addressing the stunned room. "I've missed so much." "But Grant," and I have built the most beautiful nursery for him in our new house. We're finally ready to be a complete family." Grant appeared behind her, looking polished and slightly impatient, holding a ridiculously oversized toy drone. Chloe turned her icy smile back to me. "We'll be in touch. We have lawyers now, Maya." She had built a perfect new life, and my son was just the final accessory she needed to complete it. The legal letter arrived the next morning, demanding an immediate custody review. It wasn't a custody battle. It was an execution by paperwork. I went to the best family lawyer I could afford, David Davis, who was blunt from day one. "Maya, I know you're his mother in every way that counts, but we need to prove unfitness, and that is exceedingly hard. He was never technically removed from your sister's care. You stepped in." Davis warned me about rehabilitation. Chloe, it turned out, had spent those 8 years marrying up, cleaning her record, and crafting a new identity. She and Grant lived in a sprawling, sterile white compound with a staffed nursery. They had a mountain of money and a legal team that treated my modest income like a joke. They painted me as a manipulative gatekeeper who had maliciously alienated a struggling, rehabilitated mother from her child. Every time I mentioned my years of sacrifice, they countered with, "That was her duty as an aunt," implying I was delusional to call myself his mother. They demanded psychological evaluations, home visits, and a financial audit of my modest life. It was intrusive, humiliating, and terrifying. Leo started wetting the bed. He stopped asking about his party. He would only eat macaroni and cheese. During mandatory mediation, I sat across from Chloe, who was scrolling on her phone. I begged her, "He doesn't know you, Chloe. Please, don't do this to him. Think of his emotional well-being." She didn't even look up. "He's my biological son, Maya. The law says I get him back. It's that simple." My love meant nothing against her money and her DNA. That's when I realized she wasn't fighting for Leo. She was fighting me. And so, we were back in courtroom 3B. The final day. Davis fought hard, using child psychologists who testified about attachment disorder and the trauma of removal. But Grant's lead lawyer, a man who seemed to take personal pleasure in my destruction, dismantled them. "Is it the state's position that wealth and biological parents are a negative for a child?" he asked the judge with fake incredulity. "Or that an aunt should have more rights than a reformed mother?" When Chloe took the stand, she gave an Oscar-worthy performance, tearfully describing her struggles and her deepest regret, and how she had worked every single day to be worthy of her son. The judge swallowed it. He looked at us and basically said biology was destiny. After the ruling, they gave me 1 hour to pack Leo's life. 1 hour to compress 8 years into 3 cardboard boxes. I went into his room. I cried into his shirts. I packed his favorite stuffed rabbit, Barnaby, and his drawing. I tried to explain what was happening, but my words dissolved into sobs. "Am I bad, Mommy? Did I do something wrong?" He kept asking, his little face contorted. When Grant arrived in his polished SUV to pick him up, Leo didn't move. He grabbed my leg and screamed, the same scream that would haunt the courtroom. Grant had to literally lift him, kicking, into the car. Chloe didn't even get out to help. She sat in the front passenger seat, adjusting her sunglasses. I was a stranger in my own life. As the car pulled away, I watched my son look back at me through the window, Barnaby clutched to his chest. The void wasn't empty. It was filled with the noise of his absence. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I just sat on the floor of his room, holding the one toy I'd missed, a tiny, worn Lego astronaut. For the first 2 weeks, I wasn't allowed any contact. Davis told me they were forcing an attachment period, but it felt like isolation torture. When my first court-ordered video call was scheduled, I was almost vibrating with anxiety. When his face finally appeared on the screen, my heart shattered all over again. He looked hollow. His skin was pale, his hair looked dull, and he was wearing a stiff, brand-new shirt that was too big. "Hi, Mommy Maya," he said, his voice flat. His eyes were darting around the room, which looked like the interior of a furniture catalog. "Hi, baby. How is Barnaby doing?" I tried to sound cheerful, though tears were stinging my eyes. He hesitated, looking off camera. I saw a manicured hand, Chloe's, briefly enter the frame, gesturing something I couldn't understand. "Barnaby is in the playroom," Leo said robotically. The call lasted exactly 5 minutes. Before it ended, he lowered his voice. "Mommy, she takes photos. All day. Different outfits. She gets mad if I move. Then Chloe's face appeared, smiling widely. Okay, that's enough for today. Say bye-bye, Leo. The screen went black. A chill settled deep in my bones. Leo didn't like taking pictures. He hated being on display. She was using him for something, and it wasn't motherhood. Why was Chloe, who had always hated parenting duties, suddenly so obsessed with his image? Well, moving to a real family is a big adjustment, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. The interaction left me sick. Leo was an anxious wreck, and Chloe was treating him like a prop for her social media feed. The mandated face-to-face visit, 2 weeks later, was even worse. It was supervised at a sterile family contact center. When I walked in, I saw Leo sitting stiffly on a gray sofa. Chloe was standing, adjusting the collar of his shirt while simultaneously tapping on her phone. Look who's here, she announced, her voice too loud and theatrical. She took a step back, raised her phone, and framed us. Okay, go hug Annie Maya. Try to look happy, okay? She was literally staging the reunion. Leo didn't need to be told. He ran and slammed into me, burying his face in my chest. I held him, memorizing the smell of his soap, but something was off. He was incredibly anxious. He was scratching his arms, a nervous tic he hadn't done in years. Are you okay, baby? I whispered into his hair. He pulling back, avoiding my gaze. I'm fine, he muttered, repeating the robotic phrase from the video call. I looked him over. Under the expensive designer jeans, his knees were scraped, and when I touched his arm to soothe him, he flinched. The skin was raw. I looked at Chloe. What's wrong with his arm? Chloe didn't even look up from scrolling. Oh, he's fine. Grant took him on his new boat, and Leo got some spray on it. Sensitivity, I guess. We have cream. I knew my son. He didn't flinch like that for sensitive skin. She was lying. He doesn't seem himself, Chloe. He's very tense. I told her, my heart racing. I needed to know what she was hiding in that pristine mansion. The interaction left me sick. Leo was an anxious wreck, and Chloe was treating him like a prop for her social media feed. That night, I decided to do something I should have done months ago. I started investigating my sister's perfectly curated life. I made a fake Instagram account and started deep scrolling. It was nauseating. Chloe was remarketing herself as a tradwife influencer, a wealthy mother who had finally found her purpose. Leo was everywhere, staged photos in white linens, unboxing expensive toys, holding handwritten signs with forced smiles. He was a prop, but that still didn't explain the urgency or the resources she poured into the custody fight. Why did she need him now? I started pulling public records on Grant's development company. Then I found it. Hidden in the notes of a complex corporate filing was a clause for a substantial multi-million-dollar family trust fund left by Grant's grandfather. The payout to Grant was contingent on him being a family man with at least one legal descendant residing in the household. Grant's own legal status was complicated, but if he legally adopted or assumed guardianship of Leo, the clause was met. I sat back, the blood running cold in my veins. It was never about love or regret or even family. Leo was just a multi-million-dollar box for them to check. Leo was a financial accessory, worth millions, and Chloe had sold him. It wasn't affection, it was a hostile takeover masked by DNA. I immediately took my findings to Davis. He was stunned but pragmatic. This is motive, Maya. This is massive, but proving it in court will still be a challenge. We need to show that this trust fund is the only reason, and we still need proof of current unfitness or neglect. The next video call, I went in with a list of questions, trying to trip Chloe up, but I was the one who got caught. Maya, I've decided these calls are too disruptive, Chloe announced. Leo is just too upset after. Until he settles in, we're going to suspend them. The contact center visits are enough. She was cutting me off. The logic was clear. I was getting too close, asking too many questions, and she was terrified I'd noticed the cracks in her facade. My only lifeline to my son was about to be severed. I panicked. You can't do that, Chloe. It's court-ordered. He needs me. I yelled. She just smiled. Oh, I'm not breaking the order. I'm just prioritizing his emotional health. My lawyers will file the amendment. The call cut. I knew I couldn't fight her with emotion or even with the truth about the trust fund. I needed more. I needed hard, undeniable proof that the perfect mother was a fraud and that my son was being hurt. I needed an insider. What do you do when the law says you're nothing to your own child? Maya, I've decided these calls are too disruptive. Until he settles in, we're going to suspend them. I was drowning in silence when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I didn't find one. One found me. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was a woman with a nervous voice. "Is this Maya?" she asked. I worked for Chloe. As the nanny. For Leo. My heart skipped a beat. Yes, this is Maya. Are you okay? She wasn't. Her name was Maria, and she had been fired the day before because she refused to help Chloe stage a photo. It's all a lie, Maya. All of it. The loving mother thing? She never even feeds him. She leaves him in his room all day with an iPad until the photo shoot. She has the chef make his food look like motherly cooking, and then I'm told to make him sit with her and Grant for 5 minutes while they take photos. Then he's back upstairs. She paused, her voice shaking. And the scratching? It's not a reaction. She puts this lotion on him to make his skin look slightly red and raw so she can promote this organic sensitive skin cream she's selling. He screams every time, but she just says he's being dramatic. My stomach retched. It wasn't just neglect. It was abuse for clout and profit. Maria told me she had texts, emails, and even video of Chloe screaming at Leo for messing up a shot. She told me where the bodies were buried, and she had the shovel. Can you meet me? Can you give me this evidence? I asked, my voice a jagged whisper. I didn't have to wait. Maria met me in a coffee shop across town, wearing large sunglasses. She gave me a USB drive containing months of correspondence. It was a digital archive of nightmare. There were emails from Grant complaining about Leo ruining the aesthetic of the house. There were Ring camera recordings, which Grant had mistakenly shared access to with Maria, showing Chloe ignoring Leo while he was sick, even when he was calling for me. And most damningly, there was a saved voice note from Chloe to her agent. She said, "The kid's a nightmare, hates the camera. Grant only needs him to check the box for the trust. But if I don't keep him profitable, he's a waste of space. He can't keep flinching in every shot." My skin was crawling as I watched the Ring video of my baby crying, Mommy Maya, into an empty playroom. The last of my patience evaporated. I wasn't just his aunt anymore. I was his defender. I had the trust fund details, the emails, the photos of the irritation on his skin, the Ring footage, and the direct voice confession. I had enough to sink her world. Davis saw the drive, and his cynical expression finally cracked. "We don't just have motive, Maya. We have evidence of fraud and neglect." I stopped playing nice, gathers ironclad evidence, and strategically maneuvers through the legal system to expose the sister and rescue the nephew. We had the nuclear option. Now we needed the right stage to detonate it. "Let's not just file a motion," Davis suggested, his voice low and dangerous. "Let's make sure she can't spin this." He arranged a legal deposition, ostensibly to discuss the visitation suspension and the psych reports. But I knew better. In the sterile conference room, I sat directly across from my sister. Chloe looked immaculate and arrogant. "This is such a waste of time, Maya," she snapped. "I'm an incredible mother. The photos show it." That was her fatal mistake. She believed the image was reality. "Chloe," Davis said, his voice smooth as silk, "we have a video of you ignoring Leo while he was in distress on June 14th. He spun a monitor toward her. The Ring camera footage played. Leo calling for me, and Chloe in the doorway, staring at her phone, shouting, "Shut up about her," before slamming the door. Her face went pale, but her legal team instantly tried to minimize it. That proves nothing. A single moment of frustration, her lead lawyer dismissed. Davis didn't react. "And we also have this email exchange, and this financial analysis of how your Instagram profit coincides with Leo's custody." He dropped a stack of papers. Chloe grabbed them, her hand beginning to shake. Then Davis played the voice note. The sound of her own voice, saying, "If I don't keep him profitable, he's a waste of space," echoed in the silent room. I sat back and watched the mask begin to violently fracture. The silence after the recording played was louder than any scream. It didn't just fracture, it exploded. Chloe dropped the papers. "You bitch," she shrieked, her voice a shrill, manic cry. She stood up, her face twisted with a rage I hadn't seen since our childhood. "You think you can take him? He's mine. My property. My trust fund. You have nothing." Her own lawyer tried to pull her down, whispering frantically, but she was beyond reason. She grabbed a water glass and smashed it against the table, glass and water flying everywhere. Grant, who had been sitting passively in the corner, finally woke up. "Chloe, the trust fund?" he asked, his voice filled with a sudden, genuine realization. She ignored him, spittle flying from her mouth. "Grant, shut up. I did this for us. He has to live with us." But the damage was done. The confession was on the record. The violence, the admission of financial motivation, and the physical breakdown were all captured on Davis's audio recorder. The room was in absolute chaos. Her legal team was stunned into silence. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, my heart pounding, watching my sister completely destroy her own carefully constructed image in less than 60 seconds. The truth, ugly, brutal, and undeniable, was laid bare on the conference table. We immediately left the conference room and filed for emergency custody. The wheels of justice, once so slow, now turned with a terrifying speed. We didn't even have to wait for a hearing. The judge, presented with the evidence and the deposition transcript, granted an emergency ex parte order. The very same bailiff from the first day arrived at the compound with me and 2 social workers. This time, I didn't have to pack. I just wanted my son. I found Leo in the sterile nursery, clutching Barnaby so tight I thought he'd crush him. When he saw me, he didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just collapsed into me, his body shaking with soundless, racking sobs. Grant was in the entryway, looking broken and utterly betrayed. "The whole marriage was based on a lie," he told Davis quietly, refusing to even look toward the room where Chloe was screaming. "She told me she desperately wanted a family. Chloe wasn't there to stop us. She was locked in her bedroom, threatening self-harm as the legal and social fallout crashed down. I carried my son out of that sterile prison and drove him home. He didn't speak for the entire hour. He just gripped Barnaby and my hand like he was in midair. When we got to our house, he walked in, looked at the toy box, and said, 'Mommy, is it my house again?' I just sat on the floor, holding him and the tiny Lego astronaut, for an hour and finally let myself cry. The nightmare was over, but the waking up was a long, slow process. The physical recovery was the easy part. The skin irritation healed, the bedwetting stopped, and he started eating again. But the mental trauma was deeper. For months, Leo couldn't leave my side. He developed panic attacks whenever I used a phone, convinced Chloe was watching. Healing has been a slow, excruciating process of building trust from the ground up. We finalized the official adoption in 2 weeks. It's just a formality now. We both know what we are to each other. Grant filed for divorce and fully cooperated with CPS, even setting up a smaller trust for Leo that Chloe can't touch. As for Chloe, she vanished. Last I heard, she was running from massive debt, her influencer brand completely ruined, a pariah. Looking back, I realized that I had been fighting a war for years, but the real enemy wasn't my sister or the money. It was a system that valued biology over love, a checkmark over a child's soul. To anyone raising a child who isn't biologically yours, know this: showing up is everything. Every scraped knee you kiss, every nightmare you soothe, every messy, beautiful moment of just being there. That is what makes you a parent. The legal fight may break you, but the love that drives it is what wins. Mommy Maya, Leo asked me this morning, "Will we always be together?" And for the first time in years, the answer was absolutely, undeniably true.